Every NFL fan knows the agony. Your team's quarterback is good enough to win Sundays, but never in January. 5 franchises are stuck there right now. They're trapped in what I call the dead zone. It's that purgatory between mediocrity and contention, where you can't draft high enough to find your next franchise guy, and you can't compete deep enough in the playoffs to justify keeping what you have. By the end, you'll know which 5 teams are trapped and what they have to do to escape. Arizona is likely going to cut ties with Kyler Murray this offseason, and the numbers tell you why. Murray's contract breakdown is brutal. $52.66 million cap hit in 2026, with $36.8 million guaranteed and a $19.5 million guarantee escalator on March 11th. That's elite money for a guy who went 38, 48, and 1 as a starter with 0 playoff wins and 3 head coaches. Here's what makes this the poster child for the dead zone. The Cardinals shut Murray down with a foot injury in December, and Jacoby Brissett outperformed him statistically. Murray threw for 962 yards and 6 touchdowns in 5 starts. Brissett threw for 3,366 yards and 23 touchdowns. The offense looked better without Murray. The trade market problem is simple. Murray has $125 million in cash remaining over 3 years, with $60 million guaranteed. Any team acquiring him inherits a massive financial commitment for a quarterback who ranks 12th among QB contracts but hasn't delivered. His $22.8 million base salary for 2026 is already guaranteed, plus another $17 million in roster bonuses. That's over $40 million hitting your cap in year 1 for a guy who might not be your long-term answer. The Cardinals face 2 bad options: cut him and absorb roughly $57.7 million in dead cap, which would set a single-season dead money record, surpassing Russell Wilson's $53 million, or trade him for minimal return, likely a day 3 pick, because no team wants to take on that contract. Either way, Arizona is paying Murray not to play for them. Why staying is worse. The Cardinals hold the number 3 overall pick, but consensus top quarterback Fernando Mendoza is projected to go number 1 to the Raiders in this thin draft class. Arizona has roughly $39 million in cap space. Keeping Murray blocks a reset while the window to compete is already closed. He's been through 3 head coaches, none of whom could make it work. New head coach Mike LaFleur wants his own quarterback, and Murray's skill set doesn't fit the Rams-style offense LaFleur brings to Los Angeles. The Cardinals can't afford to run it back with Murray. They tried that. It didn't work. The competent quarterback who never reaches elite is the most expensive kind to have because you keep thinking maybe this year will be different. It won't. Quick favor, I'm on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers. If you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe button and be part of the team before game day. The Dolphins might be in the worst dead zone position in NFL history. If they decide to move on from Tua Tagovailoa, they won't just be changing quarterbacks. They'll be making the single largest financial mistake in the history of the NFL. The number on the dead cap sheet is so high it sounds like a typo. Tua's contract nightmare: $56.4 million cap hit in 2026, with $54 million in guaranteed base salary. Releasing him would create a $99.2 million dead cap hit, nearly double Russell Wilson's $53 million record when Denver cut him. Let that sink in. The largest financial mistake in NFL history would be releasing Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins shut Tua down for rookie Quinn Ewers in December 2025, signaling the end of the Mike McDaniel era. The coach was fired shortly after. The new regime doesn't have ties to Tagovailoa, and the team holds the number 11 pick in a weak quarterback draft. They need to reset now or waste another year in purgatory. The concussion elephant looms over everything. Tagovailoa has suffered 3 documented NFL concussions since 2022, raising serious questions about his long-term viability and whether teams would even want to trade for him. You're inheriting a massive contract and a player whose career could end on the next hit. The Dolphins are in the worst dead zone position because they can't cut him without setting records for financial incompetence. They can't trade him easily because of the injury history and massive guarantees. He got benched for a 7th round rookie, which means competing with him isn't realistic either. The post-June 1st option doesn't help much. Splitting the dead money to $67.4 million in 2026 and $31.8 million in 2027 still only saves $1 million in cap space. That's essentially no relief for a team that needs to rebuild its entire roster. The Dolphins are reportedly willing to absorb additional salary to facilitate a trade, making Tagovailoa's contract more palatable for acquiring teams. They're willing to take on more dead money just to get him off the roster. New GM John Eric Sullivan and new head coach Jeff Hafley have no ties to Tagovailoa. The team holds the number 11th pick in a weak quarterback draft. They need to reset now or waste another year in purgatory with a QB who can't stay healthy and might not have a future in the league. Miami's dead money trap is a worst case scenario, but at least they have clarity. The next 3 teams face different versions of the same nightmare. The Jets spent 2 years trying to build around Aaron Rodgers. When they failed, they tried reclamation quarterback Justin Fields. That failed too. Now they're stuck paying both quarterbacks not to play for them while holding the second best draft position in a historically weak quarterback class. The financial wreckage is staggering. $57 million in total dead money between Rodgers and Fields for 2026. Fields averaged 139.9 passing yards per game in 9 starts before getting benched, finishing with an 11-12 touchdown to interception ratio. The offense ranked dead last in passing yards per game. Owner Woody Johnson publicly criticized Fields' play before pulling the plug. Here's the dead zone trap. The Jets have massive draft capital, the number 2 overall pick and the number 16 pick in 2026, plus 3 first-rounders in 2027. But there's no quarterback worth taking at number 2 after Fernando Mendoza goes number 1 to the Raiders. The second-tier prospects like Ty Simpson and Trinidad Cambliss might be available in the teens, but taking one that early would be a reach. The realistic options are limited. They could pursue a veteran bridge quarterback in free agency. Kirk Cousins will be available after the Falcons release him, but that's another short-term fix. They could draft a quarterback, but taking Ty Simpson or Trinidad Cambliss at number 2 overall would be a massive reach when both might be available at number 16 or later. The roster has pieces, a solid receiving core with Garrett Wilson and Adonai Mitchell, a rebuilt offensive line, and a defense with potential under Aaron Glenn. But none of that matters without a QB who can execute. New GM Darren Moogie and head coach Glenn want their own guy, not another retread. The problem is finding him. The 2026 draft class is thin, the free agent market is barren, and the Jets have already wasted massive capital on quarterbacks who can't deliver. The Jets' dead zone nightmare is having all the resources to fix the problem, but no clear path to do it. They're stuck between reaching on an unproven prospect, overpaying for a flawed veteran, or waiting another year while their defense and weapons age out of their prime. That's a brutal place to be. Daniel Jones posted the best football of his career in 2025. Through week 13, he had a 63.0 QBR, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and over 3,000 passing yards. He looked like a legit franchise quarterback. Then he tore his Achilles in week 14. Now the Colts face a nightmare scenario. If they franchise tag Jones, it costs $47.3 million for a quarterback who's expected back for training camp but faces significant re-injury risk. Achilles tears often rob quarterbacks of the mobility that made them effective, and mobility was a huge part of Jones' game as a facilitator in Shane Steichen's heavy run offense. Here's where it gets worse. The Colts traded away their first-round picks in 2026 and 27 for Sauce Gardner. They literally can't draft a replacement, even if they wanted to. They have $35.5 million in cap space and no picks to use it on. Their starting QB is coming off a major injury. The backup is Riley Leonard, who isn't a franchise answer. Remember Anthony Richardson? The Colts rushed him into starting as a rookie, benched him when it didn't work, and now he's buried in the depth chart. That's a reminder of how badly this franchise has handled the quarterback position for years. Jones might not be ready for week 1. The Colts have a win-now roster with a solid defense and good weapons. They need a quarterback who can play 17 games. The Colts are stuck in the worst version of the dead zone. They have an injured starter, a massive price tag to keep him, no draft capital to replace him, and no certainty he'll ever be the same player he was before the injury. That's a bridge to nowhere. The uncomfortable truth about Dak Prescott is that he's playing great football. He's a top 10 quarterback when healthy. The problem is the Cowboys' ceiling with him. 10 seasons, 5 playoff appearances, 2 postseason wins. That's the Dak Prescott era in Dallas. The regular season success is undeniable, but the playoffs tell a different story. And Jerry Jones finally admitted it when he traded Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in football, to the Packers for defensive tackle Kenny Clark plus multiple first-round picks. That trade was an admission that this core isn't good enough to win a Super Bowl. You don't trade away your defensive centerpiece in his prime unless you're hitting the reset button. The Parsons trade signaled what everyone already knew. The Cowboys' window with Prescott was closed. The financial opportunity is real. Dallas would get at least 1 first-round pick for Prescott, maybe more. That gives them capital to tank for Arch Manning in 2027 or reload through the draft. Prescott enters his age 33 season in 2026. The Cowboys have no championship window with the current core, and the 2027 quarterback class is significantly deeper than 2026. The Jerry Jones factor is the wild card. Jones has shown he's willing to make big moves. The Parsons trade proved that, but trading your franchise QB is different than trading a defensive player, even an elite one. Prescott is a top 10 quarterback when healthy, and finding a replacement is incredibly difficult. Better to ride with a known commodity than gamble on the unknown. The Cowboys could run it back one more time, hope everything clicks in January, and see what happens, but that's the dead zone talking. That's the comfort of competence. The Cowboys have been one piece away for a decade. At some point, you have to admit the foundation isn't strong enough to build a championship on. The dead zone is comfortable but fatal. Teams that refuse to reset waste years of competitive windows on quarterbacks who will never get them over the hump. 2026 forces a reckoning. Weak quarterback draft, expensive veterans, and cap constraints mean these 5 teams must act now or accept mediocrity. Sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. These teams know what they have. The question is whether they have the courage to move on.